Hey everyone, it's Tori, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. For today's video, I'm super excited to be setting up my reading journal for 2025 with you all. I got this gorgeous B5 size journal from Archer & Olive, and I am an affiliate with them, so if you want to save some money and support my channel, you can use my code CMCG10 for 10% off your order at archerandolive.com. I don't think they have this current style in stock, but they're always adding new journal covers to their inventory, and they even bring back favorites from time to time, so keep an eye on their website. They're my favorite journals of all time. This journal is 160 GSM bright white dot grid paper, and it also has ribbon bookmarks, an elastic enclosure, a pen loop, and even a pocket in the back to store leftover stickers, ephemera, or anything important that you want to carry around in your journal. So after taking a look at the features of this journal, let's get into the supplies I'll be using to set up the beginning of year trackers and spreads in my 2025 reading journal. I'll be using a variety of Tombow dual brush pens for coloring, some outlining, and headers. I'll also be outlining and writing with some Sakura Pigma Micron fine liners, mainly in the sizes 05 and 01. I also took out my Tombow Fudonosuke soft tip brush pen and my Uniball Signo white gel pen because they pair perfectly together if you want to write over a black section in your journal, which I'll be using when it comes to filling out my goals in one of my spreads. I'll of course be using my alphabet stamps for my headers, and you can find this set on Amazon. I actually pre-prepped and stamped them out on these craft paper and white paper sticky notes. These are also from Amazon. I've got a couple more tools from Archer & Olive, like my stencil that I'll be using mainly as a ruler, and my Archer & Olive A5 Neapolitan notepad, which will come in handy with my craft paper borders throughout this setup. Lastly, we've got some stickers like these star rating stickers that are from Pretty Little Studios. They're so perfect for reading journal spreads, and I go through pages of these every single year. And these larger vinyl stickers are from RedBubble. They're mainly references to Sarah J. Maas series like Throne of Glass, A Court of Thorns and Roses, and Crescent City. And I also have a couple Fourth Wing inspired stickers here as well. All of my supplies will be linked down below as usual, and now it's time to hop into my first spread of this journal setup, which is my name page. So I decided to outline my name on this page with a wooden frame and some vines weaving in and out of it. And I got this idea from the bookshelf tracker that I referenced from Mandy Journals on Instagram and Pinterest. She had a plant that went up and around the window, but I also like the look of the yearly spreads by Jess from Jashi Curran. She did something similar in her bullet journal recently, and I liked how the vines were weaving in and out of the frame around her spread. I just thought it was really cool, so I kind of smashed those two ideas together, and this is what I got. I outlined everything in my 05 Sakura Pigma Micron, and I used my Tombow dual brush pens in 312 and 969 to color everything in. So I used color 312 to color in the leaves, which is the green. I use this all the time in my bullet journal, but 969, which is the really dark, rich brown, I don't think I've ever used this one. Maybe for like a coffee theme a couple years ago, but I'm honestly not sure. I just wanted something that was still warm but really dark to color in the frames, and I think this shade was perfect for what I was going for. I used my alphabet stamps to stamp out Tori's Reading Bujo because I couldn't fit reading journal on this line, and I added in the year at the bottom because I only plan to use this journal for 2025. And the last thing I did for this spread is over on the left. I added in some of these tarot card looking stickers from RedBubble, and they say Throne of Glass, A Court of Thorns and Roses, and Crescent City, which are Sarah J. Maas series. I already read ACOTAR a few times, and I'll be finishing up Throne of Glass and diving into Crescent City next year, which I'm super excited about. And with the first page of my journal complete, let's hop into my reading tracker. Before we get into that tracker though, I need to glue tape these two pages together because I don't like this page. It's glued too close to the spine, so trying to make this spread function is difficult for me, so I just get rid of it and move on to the first dot grid 2-page spread of this journal. And for this page, I'm doing the bookshelf reading tracker that literally everyone and their mother does right in the beginning of their reading journal. This was inspired by Mandy Journals, of course. I feel like everyone who does a bookshelf tracker like this always references this photo. It's just iconic and it never gets old. I had a really similar tracker in my previous reading and media journal from 2024, and I also referenced the same photo. But I only got to enjoy it for a couple months, so I wanted to add it into my reading journal for 2025 as well. I just love the floating wood shelves and all the plants and knickknacks all over the shelves, and the window with the night sky right in the middle. It's just so cozy. I love it. I did the leaf vine thing around the window and on one of the shelves as well, just like I did on my name page to bring in some cohesiveness to my beginning of year spreads. I do this again on a future spread as well, but I love how it looks so whimsical and so fun. Unlike my previous bookshelf trackers, I decided to make this one with a dual purpose. This is my first time bullet journaling in a B5 size journal, so I didn't really realize how big this journal actually is, and I didn't need a ton of space for books on the shelves. I typically don't read more than 30 books in a year, except for this year. I think I've passed 30, but I typically read around like 25, so I didn't want to add more than 40 or 50 book spines to this spread. And I actually don't remember how many I added to this spread. I think it was like just over 40 or something, but anyways, I wanted to add my reading goals to this spread as well. I decided to do that in the form of frames, so I've got 3 frames for 3 reading goals that I have in 2025, and I color in those frames with my black Tombow Fudenosuke soft tip brush pen, so I can write over it with my white Uniball Signo gel pen to make it look like a chalkboard when it comes time to fill in my goals. And that will happen in my New Year Reset video coming out in January, so keep an eye out for that. But for the sake of not leaving you on a cliffhanger until then, I'll tell you that my only 3 reading goals for 2025 is to 1. Finish Throne of Glass, 2. Finish Crescent City, and 3. Read 10 physical books. I'm typically an audiobook girly, especially when it comes to fantasy for some reason. I love listening to fantasy books. And I actually got all of Throne of Glass and Crescent City on Audible during their Black Friday sale, so I can't wait to start reading those next year. I've actually already read the first 3 books of Throne of Glass, but it was all spaced out. I think I read like Throne of Glass in 2022, Crown of Midnight in 2023, and Heir of Fire at the beginning of 2024, which is not an ideal way to read a series. If I'm being honest, I would not recommend that. So I don't think I gave it the love and attention it deserves in the past, and I do really want to finish it, so that's a top priority for 2025 for me. I have the first 2 physical books, so I might read them in tandem with audiobooks, but we'll have to see. I recently read some of the ACOTAR books by listening to the audiobook and annotating my physical copies at the same time, and it was really fun, so maybe I'll do something similar with Throne of Glass and Crescent City. By the way, I'm sorry if you're not a Sarah J. Maas fan. I know I'm talking a lot about her books, but I love them. And I actually picked up this journal because I thought the cover looked like something straight out of one of her series. I love the fantasy vibes, and I think it pairs well with my reading habits for this year, and my TBR will actually be discussed in my next spread, so I think I'm going to pick up on this voiceover when my bookshelf tracker is all colored in and we're ready to move on. So after filling out my key, which I'll be coloring in the spines green if I read an audiobook and yellow if I read a physical book, as well as finishing up coloring in those frames for my goals, it's time to head over to my 25 books in 2025 spread. I get questions all the time about how I print out my journal images on label paper, so I will have all that information down below if you're interested, including my label paper link, book cover sizing, etc. It'll all be down there. But this spread is going to essentially be a TBR, which means to be read for those of you who don't know, and I picked 25 books I want to read for 2025. I did a 24 books in 2024 for this year's journal, and I thought it was a fun idea, so I wanted to do it again, mainly because my regular TBR is a million miles long. So it's kind of nice to narrow it down to 25 books that I want to prioritize reading during the year. I've already talked so much about the Throne of Glass and Crescent City series so far, but I'm going to be rereading Fourth Wing and Iron Flame before Onyx Storm comes out at the end of January, and there's a few other fantasy books I want to get to as well, one of them being Serpent in the Wings of Night, which I think will actually be my book club pick for my month when it rolls around, so I'm pretty excited about that. Some books that are coming out this year that I'm so excited about are A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping, which was supposed to come out this year but kept getting pushed back, so fingers crossed it comes out in July, and also Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I love a good Emily Henry romance. But yeah, that is my 25 reads in 2025 spread, and now we are going to move on to my more general TBR. So since I've already got 25 books that I'm planning to prioritize for this year on my prior spread, this is going to just be an extra long list to write down all the other books that I want to read at some point. And if you're looking at all the lines that I'm highlighting and thinking, Tori, how are you going to fill up 4 entire columns worth of books? Believe me, it could happen. I feel like whenever I make a TBR spread, I never ever give myself enough room for the amount of books I want to remember to read, so I decided that I'm going to give myself almost too much room to ensure that I don't run out of space. Hopefully. The stickers down at the bottom are from RedBubble, and that is the super simple spread complete. We are now moving over to something that I've never put in my reading journal before, and that is a new releases tracker. I've seen a lot of booktubers and journalists on social media make a spread like this to write new books that are supposed to come out this year in the month that they're going to be released. I never felt the need for this to be in my own journal, but this year I started pre-ordering a bunch of books, and I think this spread will be helpful to keep track of when those books come out and when they'll be shipped to me. So I've just got 12 simple boxes for each month, and I'm going to write the title of the new book in each corresponding box. So in January, I'll write Onyx Storm, in July, I'll write A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping, and so on. I'm excited to go to Goodreads and find more books that are coming out in 2025 and adding them to my list. And after finishing up this spread, it is time to move over to the right side, which is my series tracker. So this is my series tracker, and I was inspired by Katie is Reading here on YouTube. I love watching her reading journal setups. And she always has a spread where she tracks the book series that she's reading by writing the series and adding little squares to mark when she finished each book in that particular series. It was my full intention to write the series that goes with each set of boxes, but I'm not going to lie, I was filming this very late at night and I totally forgot to write those in, so I will fill them in on the screen so you can visualize what it's supposed to look like. I'm doodling this frame with leaves and vines all around it like I had in some previous spreads, and inside the frame I wanted to stamp out a quote that I saw on Instagram and completely fell in love with it and knew it was perfect to go in my reading journal. The quote says, "Someday you will be old enough to start reading fairy tales again" by C.S. Lewis. And I don't know why, but this quote actually made me tear up a little bit. I went in like a reading hiatus in high school and college, but then I started listening to audiobooks and really started falling in love with fantasy again a few years ago, so this quote was just really special and I wanted to add it in. With my series tracker complete, we're heading over to my star rating guide, which I'm actually really excited to talk about with you all. So for my star rating guide, I was again inspired by something I saw on Pinterest, like I am with every journal spread I do. I love the look of this envelope with a note sticking out of it and adding in the descriptions of each star rating that personally applies to the way I rate books. So I added in some little hanging moons and stars at the top that you might have noticed I had hanging off of one of my shelves on my reading tracker, and I kind of wanted to bring that cohesiveness over to this spread as well. I was going back and forth between having an actual envelope in this journal, just like pasting it inside with a paper inside of the pocket, versus what I ended up doing here, which was just drawing it. I think it came down to me not wanting the bulkiness right in the beginning of my journal, because with all the paper and stickers I plan to add to this journal throughout the year, I wanted to minimize adding in really bulky things right in the beginning of my journal, just because I know it's going to fill up and I'm not even going to be able to close it by the end of the year. But yeah, I love how this doodled envelope came out. I added in some star rating stickers from Pretty Little Studios, and I colored them in with my star ratings going from 5 stars all the way down to 1. And I came up with this guide for myself this year because when it comes to reading books, I realized I have a very intentional way of doing it, and I once shared this on my Instagram stories and people were actually DMing me saying that they loved it, so I wanted to share my rating guide on here as well if anyone was curious. So here it goes. I rate a book 5 stars if it gives me chills and or makes me cry, and I would 100% reread it, no questions asked. 4.5 stars means I loved it, but one thing kinda pissed me off. 4 stars means one of two scenarios occurred. Either A, I thought it was going to be a 5-star read and I was kinda disappointed, or B, I thought it was going to be a 3-star read and I was pleasantly surprised. I rate a book 3.5 stars if I appreciated the vibe of the story, but I wasn't in love. 3 stars means it was fine, I liked it enough to finish it. I don't have it on here, but 2.5 means I didn't like it, but I don't want to be mean. 2 stars means I held out hope for way too long and it just sucked. And finally, 1 star means it was torture from beginning to end. So yeah, that is my personal star rating guide, and now we are going to move on to my book club book log for 2025. This is just a really simple spread where I can add book covers of the books my book club reads this year. And I have a little space to write who picked it as well as add a star rating sticker later on if I want to. And by the way, the boxes I left for the book covers are 9 dock grid spaces tall and 6 dock grid spaces wide if you were curious. That's the same size as the book covers that you saw on my 25 Reads in 2025 spread. I feel like that's a good book cover size. I made them a little bit too big in my reading journal for 2024, so I made them a tiny bit smaller from Google Images. I'm not sure of like the exact size, but they fit in those docker spaces pretty well. And that is my book club spread complete. We are now moving on to my book bingo spread. I had a bingo board in my last journal and I loved it so much, but this spread was actually inspired by Jess from Jashi Curran. She made a bingo board in her reading journal, but I didn't really reference the content of her bingo board per se. My bingo board content was kind of just a mishmash of other people's random bingo boards, reading goals, that kind of stuff that I've seen around social media. And I made sure to make most of them attainable to my reading habits, so I can at least try to get bingo this year, but also threw in a couple that I don't typically do, like reading a classic or finishing a book in 24 hours. But I like the challenge, and I like that I have a section over on the left to write the title of the book I read to complete each element of the bingo board, if that makes sense. I feel like it kind of holds my bingo board accountable and prevents me from using the same book for multiple bingo spaces. Some prompts I have on my bingo board are reading a book I pre-ordered, reading a book over 500 pages, finishing a series, reading a book that was recommended by a friend, and reading a book with a one-word title. I'm really excited to see if I get bingo or even fill up the whole board this year, and now it's time to move over to my 5-star reads of 2025 spread. This is similar to my book club book log spread, and I'm just using the bullet tip end of my black Tombow dual brush pen to put book cover stickers of each book I rated 5 stars this year. Again, I have a spread like this in my current reading journal, and I really like how it kind of sums up all my favorite books from the year, so I'm excited to see which books I end up with on this spread, and even if I get to fill in the whole page, we'll have to see. And I've actually hopped over to the right side, which is dedicated to my favorite book of 2025. I plan to add in a cover in the top corner and add in a little journaling about the book, or maybe even like a collage or something over here. I'm not entirely sure yet, but whatever book I deem to be the best I've read in the new year definitely deserves its own spread in this journal. So after adding in the pre-stamped headers onto these 2 pages, that, my friends, is my 2025 reading journal setup fully complete, and let's get into one last flip through of all the spreads we completed in this video. We are now entering the final flip through portion of today's video, and I want to encourage you all to comment down below if you have a reading journal for 2025, or just how you like to track the books you read each year. I'd love to know. And also please comment down below a book emoji if you made it to the end. I truly appreciate you all, and thank you so much for listening to me ramble throughout this entire video. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe while you're here. Also, don't forget to check out my bullet journal social medias. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!